Welcome to the Dan Gheesling Podcast. Consider this my audio journal of how I'm going about building a gaming brand while pulling back the curtain, hopefully entertaining and distracting you in the process in a family-friendly environment, meaning there's not going to be any swearing, so if you're listening to this with your kids in the car, you don't have to worry about it. In today's episode, I talk about why I always feel the need to put on a show and how I dealt with a community member that was unexpectedly offended and why our community is so awesome. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to episode 2 of the podcast. Super excited you decided to join us for the second week in a row. And before we get started, I really want to thank you for all the feedback, criticism, all your thoughts on the show. My expectations after episode 1, and I pushed it out there and said, all right, let's see what happens. I didn't really have a ton of expectations. I thought some people would enjoy it, but to get all the feedback that I did through YouTube comments, through Snapchat, through Instagram DMs, through tweets, through Discord, it really means a lot. I really felt like a lot more people listened to the podcast than I anticipated, but I really took into account all the feedback, and both constructive and negative and positive. And that's the thing. Everything I try to do, whether it's a podcast or the Twitch show, I just try to move the needle just a little bit closer to what I call the W, or to making it better. And if I can make each show just a little bit better based on your feedback or based on what people like, then I think we're going in the right direction. And I try to do that with my Twitch show, YouTube, everything. Just get a little bit better each time, and you'll be surprised the progress that's made. I know I am. So I'm really looking forward. So I want to start this episode by talking about when I started the show almost a year ago. So I really started the show in its current format last September, so September 27, which we're knocking on the door to the 1-year anniversary of the show. And I knew at the time I wasn't going to stream 5 days a week or 7 days a week. And as a result, I didn't want my Twitch stream to be a stream. I wanted it to be a show. And there's a lot of different ways people approach things on Twitch or running a live stream. And to me, I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to hit the go live button on OBS or XSplit. I just didn't want to hit the record button or the stream button and go. You know, I didn't want to turn the stream on without a plan and just to be like, hey, it's me playing a game. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have some sort of fluid show in place that people could get excited about, different segments, without being overly, I don't know if this is a proper word, without being overly chachi or overly over the top, but something that was authentic and fun, something people could look forward to. So in my head, I always say it's not a stream, it's a show. And that's how I approach everything I try to do, because that's what I like to watch. I don't like watching Twitch streams where someone's just turned on the Twitch stream and they're just sitting there playing a game talking. And I know a lot of people like that, but for me, that's not what I enjoy watching. So I tried to create a show that I would want to watch, that people I think would be fired up to watch. And like I said, there's no one way to do it, but the goal of my show is always to laugh, entertain, and distract in a positive, clean environment. And I really don't feel like I felt the reverberations of what that meant until really the past couple months. I've been getting a lot of DMs, and it's been crazy. In the past week, in my Instagram DMs, I think I've hit like 4 or 5 messages, and they just came all at once. So when something hits you like that all at once, it makes you think and really opens your eyes to something in particular. But I had these 4 or 5 DMs saying, hey Dan, after watching your stream and show for a while, I've noticed that I've stopped thinking as negative. I've noticed I've been a little bit more positive, and it's helped a lot. And I talked about this, I believe, on last Friday's Twitch show, and that means a lot, because at the end of the day, yes, I'm producing a show 3 days a week on Twitch that's centered around gaming, but I try to make it as positive as possible. Everything from what's being talked about in the chat and the community versus how we react when something horribly adverse happens into a game, because I just want people, I've always wanted people around the show to be able to walk into the show and when they leave just a half tick happier, a half tick more entertained. Maybe they laughed a little bit more. Maybe they were distracted, and it really hasn't hit me at this point, or maybe they walk out a little bit more positive or feeling better about whatever's going on in their life, having watched the show or hung out with the show. And that sounds, I don't want to say self-aggrandizing, and I'm not out here trying to be Tony Robbins, because I had an honest conversation on Friday's show about, hey, look, it's almost, it helps me move the needle as well personally on being more positive. I'm not always this rosy lollipop and candy kind of guy, but on the show, every time something adverse happens, whether we're playing Escape from Tarkov and we get completely wiped and lose, $500,000 worth of ruples in gear, which is really devastating if you play Escape from Tarkov. But to have that happen live and to not be salt induced or not have a salt reaction, but really it's helped me, because I know, hey, look, sure, I could throw up my hands and complain, but that's not what I want to do on the show. So as much as I feel like, it's from these DMs that I've been getting, it helps other people. It's always helped me kind of move the needle in that regard as well, which I never expected. And that's one of the reasons I think I've been having fun playing Dark Souls, is because in Dark Souls 2, which we just started, is because that game is designed to cause you to rage. It's an extremely difficult game. You're going to die a lot. And sometimes you're going to die in a situation where you may think that it's unfair, but ultimately it's fair, and it's how you react to it. So I think I've kind of found a stride in playing those kind of games, because it allows you to look that type of gaming adversity in the face and just laugh it off and try to find a silver lining. So that's part of what I've been trying to build in the show. And as much as I feel as what I do on the camera and how I react to things during the show, whether it's, something in chat or something adverse that happens in the game, I feel the other part of what I do is at least 50% community management, meaning that one of the issues that's come up this week, and I thought it would be an issue, but it's more of an issue than I anticipated, is we had a great experience with Dark Souls Remastered over the past 2 months on the show. It really has propelled the show forward. I think a lot of people enjoyed watching it. A lot of people came into the show to watch that, which was amazing. But to be able to follow that up was a really daunting. You're coming off, really, what I have to say is probably the best experience and the most successful game I've played on the show to date from a single player standpoint. And so an issue or a problem you have to deal with, and it's a good problem, is, okay, how do you follow that up? It's almost like the old saying, you never want to replace someone in a job that's done a great job or that's phenomenal. You don't want to, if someone retires, you don't want to go into their shoes, because it's almost an impossible task to do better than them. However, I decided when making a decision to replace Dark Souls Remastered with Dark Souls 2, the general vibe I had gotten from the community is that it's not as good of a game as Dark Souls 1. Now, I played Dark Souls 2 in the past. I don't remember it not being fun or not being a fun experience. But one of the issues that's popped up this week in the show and the community is that people are coming into the show saying, oh, Dark Souls 2 isn't as good as Dark Souls 1, or Dark Souls 2 sucks. And, number one, that's not a good vibe in the community. And at the same time, in my head, I don't want to run a community or influence chat to censor their opinion, because like it or not, that's an opinion. I don't want to thought control people, but at the same time, I don't really want to see that in the chat, because it's a small thing. But when I talked about running the show as part of community management, you just don't want people coming in saying whatever you're playing sucks or this game's not good or whatever reason. I respect the opinion, but at the same time, that has been a challenge for me this week, understanding how to respond to that, and in a way that allows people to still express their opinion, because I never want to take that away. But at the same time, without making that be a focus of the chat. Because sure, maybe say Dark Souls is a 10 out of 10, maybe Dark Souls 2 is an 8 out of 10, but who cares, And so the way I've found to respond to it, whether it's working or not, is I just kind of bring up, say, hey, look, they're two different games. And they're done by, one's by Miyazaki, one's by not Miyazaki. So the way I approach, or what I've been saying, is, hey, look, I'm gonna appreciate this game for what it is. It's not Dark Souls 1. There's some things that have changed that I don't necessarily, I don't want to say agree with, but they're just different. It doesn't make them bad. So that's one of the things that popped up, on the community management side of things, that I wasn't necessarily prepared for, or I didn't fully flesh out. But I'll keep you guys posted on to how that's going. But it's something I'm very conscious about, and the community management side of things, in particular right now when we're playing a game that, generally people have a lesser opinion of the game, which isn't reflective of the broadcast, right? And I feel like that's one of the things I'm often able to do, is if someone comes in and says, oh, I don't like this game, or this game is bad, to me, it's not a reflection on me. I'm trying to be as objective as possible during this show, where I don't take that stuff personally, but at the same time, it's not what I really want, in the chat. So part of, when new people come in, I talk about the community management aspect of running a show, is what's expected of them. And it's not often that, I guess, you think of it that way, or as a broadcaster, or even as someone going into other shows, you don't really know what's expected of you. But to me, I just don't expect people to come in and salt the place up. And I'm very, very adamant against that. And people know that. And it's been cool to see how the community is really overwhelmingly positive. But on this past Tuesday, so I run my show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I've been streaming Tuesday evenings around 7:30 with a group of friends. That it's different. It's not the show. It's more me playing PUBG with friends, and as a result, my normal moderators aren't around. It's a different community, but there's still a lot of the core community that comes out that night. And this past week, there was an issue, and I'm super, super proud of how things were handled. But I'm playing PUBG. If you don't know what PUBG is, it's a battle royale game. You got to be super dialed in, because if you mess around at all, it's not gonna work out well. So I'm not able to watch chat as much during this time, and so apparently there was some sort of derogatory thing said about someone else in the chat, which normally that never happens, or if it does, it's immediately extinguished on the spot, because our moderators are on the spot, or people in the community say, hey, look, that's not cool. But because there are no moderators, something popped up, and it's like, okay, now what do you do? I didn't know about it during the show, but after, in the Discord, which is, if you're unfamiliar with Discord, it's a desktop chat client, or it's on your mobile phone, where your community can hang out and talk when the show is not going on. So I got a few messages from some of the moderators, the people that moderate chat for me, and they said, hey, so-and-so who's a regular came and said, hey, this happened, and they didn't feel comfortable with it, and it was really kind of out of line. And I was so happy and proud of a couple things. Number one, that the person who felt offended by really just someone who came in the chat and was, trolling and kind of said some inappropriate stuff that I didn't see. But that, number one, they felt comfortable enough to reach out to someone else in the community and say, hey, look, this happened. It really wasn't cool. And I wanted to let you know because it bothered me. And for someone to feel that way in the community and be able to go to someone and do that, it means a lot to me, because number one, they feel comfortable. Number two, I think it's an element of them taking ownership in the community, that they don't want that around because it's not typical. So I was really proud of that individual, that they had actually done that. And the pieces around it, to know that we've set up a community in which, the majority of the people are positive, and that's what happened isn't indicative of what normally happens. And number two, I was super proud of the moderators that were able to jump on it right away and kind of take care of it, and, really brought it to my attention so that I could also, get involved in that. So issues like that will pop up, but one of the things from a community management side that's been really standing out as well is that people have been coming in the community, new people, as the show's growing, say, hey, I really like it here because the chat's a little bit different. Things are a little bit more positive. And I feel like you don't notice those things, or you don't really understand how important they are. I mean, I was always understood the importance of it, but I guess I don't know how to say it, but it's been important to me because I want people to be able to come to the show, have a good time, and not worry about, politics or whatever's going on in their real life or whatever. But to see new people come in and experience that right away, it is really kind of fulfilling in a way that what we're doing is working, and it's been a good experience so far. So outside of that, the community management aspect of the show, that's been going well. Another thing that I've got around to do is I hired an editor. And I got to a point with YouTube where I was putting out a lot of videos. Some were YouTube exclusive videos and some were straight VODs. And I just knew what I was doing wasn't working. In particular, I was making these Escape from Tarkov videos where I would play the game for 30 to 35 minutes with no edits. And I always talk about how one of my buddies, his name's Northern Lion, he's a unicorn when it comes to YouTube. He can hit the record button, play his game for 45, 60 minutes, and you're wildly entertained throughout the entire thing. He's just a really dynamic character. He's super intelligent. And as a result of that, his videos come off super witty. This game that I'm playing and being self-aware, these videos are putting out, I enjoyed them, but I'm like, look, can I do better? And I can. And the way I could do better was I needed to edit the videos. Being an individual with finite amount of time, I knew I didn't have the time to edit the videos, but I wanted to spend a week myself editing them myself so I could understand the process, what I liked, what I didn't like. So I edited a few videos myself, and then I fired out a flare on Twitter saying, I'm looking for an editor. Great. That sounds like something great to do, but I had no idea the process involved. So and this could be used for anything online, but I knew I wanted to bring in an editor. I'd used one in the past in a different capacity, but this is someone where I needed them day in and day out, essentially needing to produce one video a day or edit one video a day per month, so it would be 28 videos a month. So to do that, I'm like, all right, I got to hire someone. So I fire out this tweet, get a bunch of responses, get a bunch of DMs, and I just kind of sat back for a second because you got to sift through a lot of stuff. It was important to me that they didn't have to be like crazy involved in the community, but they had to have an understanding of what was going on in the show, of how I approach things, and just have a general idea about the channel, and also have a general idea about Tarkov. So really two people in particular stood out. One dude tweeted me and said, hey, do you care if I rip the VOD of your last video and edit it? I'm like, holy cow, like this dude is on it. That's exactly what I want. I want someone who's going to take some initiative. So he just did it all in his own sentence to me. And the other guy had said, hey, I want to do this. Send me a VOD. Let's do it. So go through the process, really kind of narrowed it down to two. And two people sent me back really good products of a previous episode. I reviewed them, sent them some notes. And based on that, it was just, okay, who could I see myself working with based on how they communicated, how fast they got the work done, and the quality of their work. So went through the process of that, ended up hiring someone. So, signed a contract, said, hey, I need 7 videos a week, edited in this style format. There's going to be a little back and forth, but I'm not going to micromanage your edits. And the direction I gave the editor is that, hey, look, if you want to try something a little creative in each episode, do it. I'm not going to pull the reins back on you. I'm not going to say, oh, edit that out. But it's like a learning process. So I've really enjoyed the process of working back and forth with the editor. And I think I picked a great one. He's super on the ball and, has done some really cool things. So there's a process of hiring the editor. There's a process of setting up your actual process. Had to go through, set up a Dropbox, say, hey, I'm going to upload the raw video to Dropbox. You take it, edit it, put it in, the same Dropbox, update, create a thumbnail, and I'll review the episodes from there. So we set up a back and forth process. And bottom line, I'm very, very happy with the new edited Escape from Tarkov videos on the channel that hit the morning every day at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Reason being, it's just a flat out better product. And one of the things, there's always pushback when you do something new. In the first couple, people are like, oh, I miss the commentary and the natural flow of an unedited episode. And on the first edited episode that hit the channel, this was like 50% of the comments. Like half the people were saying this. I'm like, all right, you spent all this time hiring an editor and I think it's a better product. I think it's more entertaining to watch. But at the end of the day, if the community doesn't think it's better to watch, do I need to keep doing this? But I'm like, okay, it's one video. Let's let the rest of the week play out and see how it goes. So over time, those comments started to reduce and more comments started to pop up say, oh, I really prefer these videos better. And they're a lot, they just seem a lot more coherent. And basically, I feel like they're a lot better fitted for YouTube, because I went from 35 to 40 minute videos. Now these are around 20 to 25 minute videos, and kind of the low moments of Tarkov have been edited out, and there's still a narrative going on. So I just stepped back, gave it a lot of time, and I know for a fact, I'm like, all right, I'm going to give this 30 days of this new edited process, and we'll see how it goes. But really, the point I learned from that is that just chill. Give it some time. You're not going to solve the world or explode your channel in one video. Have a plan, stick to the plan, and reassess after 30 days. And I think they're going to continue to get better, and I think people are going to enjoy them. It's just a matter of anytime you change something in the channel, the community, there's going to be a little bit of pushback, which I understand. But the odd thing is, too, I found myself, I guess it's not that odd, I found myself more apt to promote those videos now that they're edited. And I think the reason is that when I was cranking out 7 Tarkov videos a week that were unedited, I thought they were good. I just didn't think they were my best work. So if you go back and look, if you're a stickler or you're into that sort of thing, I really didn't tweet out a ton of my videos that I created that weren't edited. And I think internally somewhere I knew that I could do better, but I was just doing the best I could with the time that I had. And that's kind of a hard thing to comprehend and to be okay with as a content creator, or, I guess anything, is that if you're doing the best you can at the time, but you can do better, it's such an odd feeling where it's like, all right, it forced me to get to a point where I took a step back and said, okay, how can I do better? And can I do better by myself? And the answer was no. So I'm really excited about that. That's something I've wanted to do for a while, to get an editor on board. And I think that I made the right decision. Time will tell, a couple episodes, or a month or two down the road, we'll see how things are going. Outside of that, I'd brought someone into the office last week for an interview. So the other thing I was planning on doing was hiring an intern to come in and help me with the back end of YouTube. So someone that would come in, have access to my back end YouTube account, that would be able to upload videos, schedule them out, and help me run some things on the back end Twitch side of things. So had a bunch of people interview, brought one person in, and this was before I had hired the editor. And I'm a pretty private person. In my office where I run my business that is unrelated to YouTube and Twitch, I have an assistant that works for me, and she's worked for me for about 3 years. And I have someone else that helps me 1 day a week for my real life business. I don't say real life business because these are both real life businesses. And then there's another person. I'm like, okay, I want to bring someone in the office to help me with the gaming stuff because I need help. Like, I'm running out of time. And so this was during the process when I was hiring the editor. He came in, and I'm really trying to figure out, I think he would do a good job, but I have that kind of up in limbo right now. And if he's listening to this podcast, he's going to know. And I told him, I said, hey, he interviewed well, things worked well, but I just hired this editor. So I still got to see if I can find a way to make things work for him. But it made me question if I want to have someone in the office all times working at this. Like I said, I'm a pretty private person. A lot of people may or may not know this about me, but it sounds really strange, but I'm an introvert. And a lot of the times I prefer to be not around a lot of people. And it may sound strange given, that I do a podcast and run a Twitch show, but it's just honestly how I am. And, if I'm at a party, I'm talking to maybe one or two people. I'm not in the center or circle of people. It's just not how I'm generally wired, which I said is maybe contradictory to what you may have thought. But anyways, how that plays a role is I've really got to decide, do I want another person in the office on a multiple day basis? I don't know. I don't know if I do, and it's not necessarily fair. I guess maybe it wasn't fair to bring him in the interview knowing that, but I guess there's always a way to kind of figure it out and maybe have it be on a single day basis. So that's kind of a sticking issue with me right now. I don't know how I'm going to handle it. I need to take a step back and decide how I'm going to do that. Outside of that, I missed an upload day of Escape from Tarkov, and anytime I miss an upload day, it's like, and I don't know if you get this feeling or not, if you don't do something you're supposed to. I get this squeeze feeling on my heart, and it's like a tension that you can't describe, but it affects me on a personal basis. If there's things that I've scheduled out that I know have to be done and I miss it, I just feel squeezed on my heart. I have no other way to describe it other than that. And so that bothered me this week. But it's part of the deal. I've got to find a way to get better in dealing with that squeeze in the heart. But more importantly, what it's an indicative factor of is my schedule is so tight. I think one of my downfalls has always been is that I have so much I want to do, and I schedule out my days so tightly. If I go down a wormhole for 10, 15 minutes to see Logan Paul versus KSI, man, it totally throws off my schedule. So I could say there's not enough time in the day, but realistically, being honest with myself, I have to avoid the wormholes. So, missing a day is indicative of not having a full grip on my schedule. And, there's always a way to get better. And I've gotten some comments and tweets like, Dan, how do you do all this? You have a family, you have 2 boys, you run a business, you have a Twitch show, you have YouTube videos. How do you do it all? And I kind of look at those comments and I'm like, man, if you saw behind the curtain, it looks like Wile E. Coyote with bombs exploding everywhere, running around. It's not as dialed in as I would like, but I'm trying to get better at it. So that's one of the things I don't want people to ever think. And I think this is a good forum to talk about it, is like, look, I'm trying to piece this thing together. I don't have all the answers. That's why this isn't a show about how to make a YouTube channel or how to run a Twitch show. It's more about, hey, you want to see what it's like behind the scenes. You want to know what's going well, what's not. You want to gain some insight. You want to be entertained through the bumbling and messing up of someone else. You're in the right spot, but also at the same time, we're gonna have some victories along the way. And speaking of victories, a couple other things that went well this week. One of the things that I do when I talk about running a show and making it fun and finding a way to make the show not just hitting the go live button and seeing what happens is I spend a little time, not very often, but not a ton of time, but I spend a little time setting up different bits in the event that a situation will happen on the show that will call for the bit. So I'll have an idea for a bit on the show, but if the scenario does not happen during the live show, I don't shoehorn it in, right? So I just have it ready in the event that it happens. So one of the things that I had ready this past week, it might have been the end of last week, is I had a scene set up in the show where it was a podium, and I think I set this up. I had the idea 8 minutes before I went live. I think it was 12:50 p.m. Last week, and I had this idea to have a podium to talk about what's going to happen with the character Surso Yeet at the end of Dark Souls 1. What happened to him? Because, spoiler alert, at the end of the game, I don't know if your character dies or goes into the flames. I don't really care about the lore of the game, but there was like this question of what happens to the character. So I set up this green screen podium. It's just an image with my head on top and this crowd behind it. That's all I did. I didn't know what was going to happen from there, but I just set it up so that had we beaten the game or had we need to introduce a new game, it was there. And I just set it up. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to be funny, but I set it up. I hop out there, and it looks like I'm speaking on a podium in front of a black and white crowd. It's like a black and white photo. And I just turn it on and start ranting and talking about, getting the crowd hyped up about the next game we're going to play, which is on the show, which happened to be Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin. And out of the corner of my eye, because anytime I do a bit on the show, I'm super focused on the camera, right? Because I feel like if I'm looking around during one of these unique bits, it just... If you look at the chat, I'll start laughing, or I'll kind of get out of the moment. But I could see out of the corner of my eye just the Twitch chat going crazy. I'm like, all right, I guess this one worked well. And so then I ported it to Twitch. It's like a 3-minute video, and it's probably, I think it's the most viewed video of the week. So that went well. But you do stuff like that, and I try different stuff. Some works well, some doesn't. Some don't work well. Some are like, Dan, what is this? Don't ever do this again. But other thing that worked well, people in another bit, but I guess the bit came from the community. There was something we were talking about on Twitter. One time I tweeted out, and I think this just goes to show you that the more authentic and real you are and honest, whether it's weird, whether it makes you look bad or look strange, the more people relate to you. Maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I tweeted out something where it said, my wife looked at me funny when I took a cold jar of pasta sauce out of the refrigerator and ate it. I did it because I liked it and it tastes good cold. And the reaction of that, like, people looked at me, or people tweeted back like I was some sort of savage or whatever. Like, it wasn't meant to be eaten that way. So a week later, we end up talking about it on the show. And someone's like, Dan, you like cold pasta sauce? And I said, realistically, the best temperature for pasta sauce is lukewarm, because it doesn't matter. And so chat explodes over that. What are you talking about, eating lukewarm pasta sauce? So every now and then it would get brought up in chat. So essentially they kind of drove this bit. So we did another bit last week where... And this took a little shoehorning. I will say this one took a little shoehorning in, where people wanted me to eat lukewarm pasta sauce on the show. And if you've never seen the show, it probably sounds crazy to you. If you're part of the community, you're like, it sounds like it would fit in the show. So we did another bit on the show where if you get lost in the sauce, or we showed elements of extreme greed in whatever game we were playing, I literally stopped the show, went over to a fake kitchen on the green screen, which I think I set up 5 minutes before the show, and literally took a spoonful of pasta sauce that I bought from the grocery store a couple days prior and ate it on the show. And people go crazy. But I couldn't tell you that was going to work. That could have flopped. That people could have not liked that. But the point is, things like that, like, you try it. And that's all I do. I try different things. If people like it, I do it more. If people don't like it, it's like I never even did it in the first place, because you never see it again. So speaking of things that haven't gone well, and I don't look at it as not going well or a negative experience. I just look at, okay, you just maybe make a decision on this. Another thing that's been going on with YouTube channels, I talked about how we play Team Unity PUBG Tuesday nights. I've been porting those videos from VOD format on Twitch over to YouTube. So say we play 7 games in a night, I would clip those 7 games off Twitch, which is a VOD or live stream format, and post them on YouTube. And the videos just haven't done well. When I say haven't done well from a view count, they're around 500 views. And in my head, it's not good. It's just not good. And so in my head, and I don't know the answer, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, if to me right now, good is around 1,000 to 1,500 views on a video, and these are getting 500, maybe time to cut them. It just flat out may be time to cut them. And the decision with that is twofold. Number one, what I don't want to do is I don't want people who are used to coming to youtube.com/Dan Gheesling and seeing PUBG videos, all of a sudden they vanish. Like, that's a tough pill to swallow. I don't like doing that. But the other thing I have to think about too is, and I don't ever play to this. I don't ever, make a conscious effort. I don't I shouldn't say, it's not my number one focus to play towards the algorithms of YouTube, right? But if you go to my channel and you see, an edited Tarkov video with 1,500 views, you see a Dark Souls VOD port, which I think is the rare occasion that it's working, with 1,000 views, and then you see a video with 500 views, which one are you going to watch? And so to me, it's like, all right, if I drop the PUBG videos, does that help my YouTube stuff on the back end? I don't know. So that's something that's not going well. I got to make a decision on. I'll probably run through the rest of this week with the videos and see how they do. It's just the hard part about that is that if people are used to watching them on the channel, I just don't like upsetting people in that regard. But it kind of, everything kind of ties to one thing. I'm not a big quote guy, but this is one. I have a whiteboard in the studio where I record the videos and I record the podcast. And if you've never seen the studio, it's basically, it's probably like an 8x8 oddly shaped office with the back 3 walls are painted bright green, so I don't need a green screen, and there's lights and whatnot. But there's a whiteboard and I have one quote on there. And like I said, I'm not a big quote guy. I'm not a Pinterest, Instagram guy that says reach for the clouds, hit the start. I'm just not like that. But when a quote comes up that drives a practical execution or a practical reminder in my head, I write it, and this was one of them. It says, you can do anything, which I believe. I believe you can do anything. I honestly believe I can do anything. I do. Do I think I can start in the NBA? No. But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, can I make a successful podcast? Yes. Is it going to take 10 years? Maybe. Can I make a successful Twitch show? Yes. Is it going to take 5 years? Maybe. But I believe I can do that. It says you can do anything, but not everything. And that one, when I read that, I'm like, oh, that one struck me like a ton of bricks. Because here I am, trying to do all these things. I'm trying to produce NBA videos, trying to make a successful Tarkov series, trying to run a Twitch show. And I'm doing all these things. And I'm like going crazy, but I can't do it all. I had it forced me to make some decisions. So I shut down the NBA series. I really took a step back, got an editor. I got it up there for a reason, because it's a reminder that you got to pick one thing, man, one or two things, and just do your best, give it a shot. And if it doesn't work, swap out a thing, but don't come out spraying and trying to do 12 things. So that's kind of, for me, that's what the show's evolved into. And that's going to be a tough pill to swallow for me, because NBA 2K19, the new Prelude, comes out a week from now. And I'm going to want to play it. I know I'm going to want to do videos on it. I know I'm going to want to stream opening NBA 2K19 packs. I don't know if I can fit it in, though. And I'm not going to fit it in to detriment other things. So I don't know how I got to that quote, but it's been an important one for me, so I wanted to share it with you. Outside of that, I do have a note in front of me, and I know I missed it. And I think I've done a lot better this episode, but I have a Post-it note in front of me. It says no ums. And I know I just hit an so I wanted to share that with you. Like I said, this isn't a perfectly produced podcast. I'm not a perfect individual. And I just want to make sure you guys know along the way, like, you're gonna see some things, you're gonna hear some things, be like, hey, I don't know if I wanted to hear that, but that's just how it's gonna be, man. And I feel like one of the things that's been funny, about reading the feedback, which is gonna transition us into the end segment of the show, is that I read a couple comments, I think, on Reddit, saying about what kind of Dan are you going to get on the podcast? Are you going to get the meme lord Dan? Or are you going to get the Dan that mispronounces words all the time? And so one of the things I wanted to do was bring on a few questions and comments that I had read, or some feedback I had read, and share them with you and comment on them. And we're going to kind of make this a segment on the show where you guys can ask a question, or if someone writes something funny or interesting or maybe a little bit off the cuff, I'm going to share it with you on the tail end of the show. But before we get to that, I want to give a shout out to Ella on Twitter. She tweeted me, I think mid last week, so a couple days after the show went live, and said, "Hey Dan, I really, more or less, I'm paraphrasing this. Ella said, "Hey Dan, I appreciate the show. Where's your Patreon? Or are you going to have a Patreon so we can support the podcast?" And I was really flattered by that. To me, it's not about the money. You guys heard me say it's not about the money, but when someone subscribes to you on Twitch, or I would imagine if someone becomes a Patreon on Patreon, if you know what Patreon is, essentially it's an at-will place where people can give you money, a monthly money to produce, to say, "Hey, we like your content," or "Hey, you know," it's a way for people to monetize a podcast or a community or whatever. And anytime someone subscribes on Twitch, yes, there's a monetary, benefit to that. But to me, and I don't know if I should look at it this way, but I do. To me, anytime someone subscribes on Twitch or, buys 10 gift subscriptions and shares them during the show, to me, it's like a vote of confidence in what you're doing, and that people enjoy what you're doing, that the audience enjoys what you're doing, and that what you're doing is good. And when you're in the business of creating content or creating entertainment, which is adverse to kind of how I am in real life, like the opinions of your audience really matters. It does. In real life, if someone says, "Oh, I don't like what you're wearing or the shoes you're wearing," I don't care. But it's different with a show, with a podcast, where you want people to like what you're doing, because that's the whole goal of what you're doing. You want people to enjoy it and people to consume it, and because that's the point of entertainment. But back to Ella's tweet, she said, "Hey Dan, where's your Patreon, or are you gonna have a Patreon so people to support the podcast?" And I responded to her, I said, "Hey, the best thing you can do to support the show or the podcast is to watch it. If you want to go above and beyond, share it with someone that you think would also enjoy it, and that would mean the world." And to me, I don't ever have plans to have a Patreon for the podcast. That's not the point of it. The point of it isn't to monetize. The point of it is to kind of bring you behind the curtain, to really, to be honest, to develop a deeper relationship, right? So I know for a fact people that watch the show and then also listen to the podcast have a better understanding of why we do what we do, have a better understanding of who I am, and it develops a deeper relationship. And I can say that because I'm on the flip side. I listen to a small handful of podcasts. One in particular I mentioned last week. It's called the Slobcast, which Deadly Slob is a Twitch content creator. He is the furthest thing from a slob. But anyways, I told you about the podcast last week, the Slobcast. I listened to it. I am his friend, but I feel like I know him 1,000 times better because I listen to his podcast. That's flat out what this is. If you want to get to know me better, if you want to get to know the community better, that's what this is. I have no plans to do a Patreon for this. I was extremely flattered. I truly appreciate it. If you want to support the show, if you want to support the podcast, listen to the podcast, share it, or you could leave a rating. But that's it. And to me, I mentioned in the first episode, I am in this for the long term, right? Could I do a Patreon? Yeah. Is there anything wrong with doing a Patreon? Absolutely not. Do I have any judgment on anyone who does a Patreon? No. You got to pay your bills. And if you want to monetize your podcast, do it. I think people should. But for me, it's just not the right move. I don't want to monetize it. To me, this is, it's part of the long-term game. If you listen to this on a weekly basis, that's my Patreon. I'm serious. When you send me a message on Instagram or Snapchat, you say, "Thank you. I also did this. I played Heretic with my dad. I went to computer shows with my family." Like, dude, that's amazing. And those are the kind of tweets I get. And I would get them and I would just sit back and I'd be like, this is why I started the podcast. It flat out is. And I truly appreciate it. Ella, thank you for that tweet. And I just wanted to shed some light on that. But there were 3 questions. I ripped these all off of YouTube. So just so you guys know, the podcast every week, every Monday morning is going to be on YouTube. It's now on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, and I couldn't find it on Google Play, but Google Play said that it was going to be on there. They sent me an email, said it's up. I haven't been able to find it. If you can find it on Google Play, let me know. So I'd imagine it's going to be on Google Play soon. But anyways, I pulled 3 comments off the YouTube video that I wanted to share with you guys, some quick Q&A. And we'll do this every week in a different format. But basically, JC Bro 8623 said, Dan, I'm really into the podcast. This is off YouTube, by the way. JC Bro 8623 says, Dan, I'm really into this podcast because it's making me understand you better. Period. Literally just talked about it. And that's not why I picked this one, but it's funny that was the first thing. It says, I'm 31, father of 3 boys, and I relate to you in the dad aspect and really look up to you on your positions of melding gaming and being a good father. That means a lot. You know, there was someone else that left a comment saying, hey, it's cool that I can leave the podcast on with my little sons running around or my little sons in the car. That's something that's always really important to me. So there's 2 different things. You know, talk about melding gaming and being a good father. I think if you're a good father, you're a good father. I don't think it has anything to do with gaming. But I think being diligent and thoughtful about how and when you introduce video games to your kids or your little brothers or your little cousins or whatever, if you help raise a kid, I think it's super important. I don't have the answers yet. I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point. I have not exposed my kids to video games yet. It's going to happen. And I think it's going to make for one heck of a social experiment or to see the reactions to it. But, thank you for the comment, and it's something I'm going to continue to touch upon and really look to other people's experiences as well. Is that, all right, you have a 2 or 3 year old kid. Is that too soon? You got to wait till 4 or 5. I don't know, but I'm excited to do that. And I'm excited. That's one of the things, as a dad, I'm never going to force my kids to play video games. I'm just not. If they don't like it, they don't like it. And I don't want to say I'll be bummed, because I won't be bummed. If they would rather, paint or play piano than play video games, I'm not going to force my kid to play video games with me. Do I think it'll be cool if they'll like to? Yeah, but if they don't, do I think it's not cool? No. I'm not going to look at them any differently. But I think at least one of my boys are going to want to play video games with me. Just going to go out on a limb. The other thing a lot of people brought up, and I didn't take any individual names on this, but a lot of people want me to talk about how I met Northern Lion and some depth to that. At some point, I'm going to bring on some people to interview. I probably don't see myself bringing anyone on the show before the first 10 episodes. At some point, I'll do an episode or a partial episode on that, because I think there's some idiosyncrasies to that relationship that are really kind of cool. But let's get to the next one. I just voided my posted note again. I noticed that. I'm not editing this podcast, by the way. All right, K Johnson 6 on YouTube says, it's nice to sit down and listen to you talk. You're very good at staying entertaining for a long period of time. Honestly, I would potentially disagree with you on that, but maybe I just need to get on the boat on that one. I do have one question that's been bugging you. Why didn't you finish Fallout 4? Much love. Keep up the good work. So I had Fallout 4. It's a long-form RPG on YouTube. I was really excited to play it. 2 things happened. One, it really became not fun. Like, the game just wasn't as fun as the other games. To me, it wasn't fun as Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas. And people weren't watching as much. And I hate to use that as a reason for stopping a series, but it plays a fact into it. If I'm spending 30 minutes to an hour making a video that no one's watching, I can't do it. I can't. And I got to be careful when I say no one's watching, because that's not true. And that's like, I say something like that and I'm like, dude, don't say something like that, because like, there's people that watch it. And then you're like, well, there's not enough people that watch it. And, that's, to me, that's another BS thing to say. Like, I'm just talking through it right now, because essentially you're marginalizing, say that 300 people watch a video, you're marginalizing those 300 people. And that's not what I'm trying to do. But, I'm trying to grow this thing. And if the videos aren't doing well, I can't justify making them anymore, even if it's going to upset those 300 people. I'm sorry, just know that's the reason, Cade, that I stopped was not to upset you. It's typically because I don't like the game. The game isn't fun, and people aren't enjoying watching it. If those 2 things happen, I'm not doing a video on it. I'm not playing the game. If I enjoy the game, I truly enjoy it, and a lot of people don't watch it, there's a strong chance that series or that's going to show up on Twitch. 100%. It will happen from time to time. I'll play something that I really want to play, even though no one wants to watch it. It's rare that I'll do it. But the dream is to have something like Tarkov or Dark Souls that I love playing and that people also enjoy watching. So Fallout 4, you got to meet the 50% criteria, and it didn't. So that's why it's not there, Kate. I know you've asked that a ton on a lot of YouTube videos. So I hope it answers the question for you in the podcast. And the last comment and question on this one, this is the one I want to talk about. It said, NK Nazi 5 says, it's funny. I've gotten used to the Dan that's super zany and memes it up all the time, but I always felt you were crazy like a fox and that there was a serious side behind the scenes. This episode is the podcast that the other side of you, at least that's how it felt to me, and I'm glad you felt that we were mature enough to see the side of you. Meme Lord Dan is fun too, just nice to see the other side from time to time. Also, the format is good to listen to while at work. And I'm going to talk about this more in a future episode. But basically, you know, when I make videos, when I do the live show, that's me. You know, I'm going to do an episode on this in the future, but that's me. I feel like after a year going, I don't want to call it full time, but really serious on Twitch, if you go from episode 1, the first stream, to now, what you find is I'm way more comfortable and I do more crazy things. And I feel like I'm like that in my real life. If I'm really comfortable around you, then I'm going to be more of myself. I'm going to be kind of crazy. I say funny stuff. I do weird things. But the inverse of that is that if I'm not comfortable, I'm a lot more reserved. I'm chill. That's just how it is. So I think what you've seen, you know, which one is the real Dan? Both. You know, this is the podcast Dan. That's the real Dan. That's when it's like, all right, let's take a step back and look at what we're doing crazy on the show. Is it working? Is it not? And then, you know, if you look at the show and you see when I'm being funny or goofy or doing crazy things like putting on a gold chain or eating lukewarm pasta sauce in the middle of the show, that's also me. And at times I feel like people think like I'm playing up a character. In a way, not really. Like, I just do goofy stuff, man. And I'm just fortunate and lucky. And I take lucky out of it. I'm fortunate. I guess fortunate and lucky are the same thing. But I really am grateful. I think grateful is the better term. That I have an outlet, an opportunity, people that enjoy watching that. Because that's like... And when I do that stuff, it's not like, oh, I'm forcing this for clickbait, or oh, like let me find what I can do that's shocking, or what. It's that's just something that crosses my head that I would do. And so I think it'll be interesting to see in future episodes. We'll talk more about, you know, which one is the real Dan. They're all different parts of the real Dan. But thank you guys. I want to thank JC Bro, Cade, NK Nazi. Thank you guys for the comments. I know you probably didn't plan on them being read on the episode, and also Ella for the tweet. But thank you guys. If I want to do something different in the future, I'm going to continue to pull messages off Twitter, off YouTube comments. If you send me a DM, whatever, and you know, it's something we want to talk about in the Q&A, fire me your Q&As. Also, if you go to dangheesling.com/ask and you want to leave a voicemail, question, comment, feedback, criticism for the show, I'm going to start playing some voicemails on the show, on the Q&A part of the show. So if you go to dangheesling.com/ask in your web browser, I think you can also do it on your phone. You literally hit a button on the website, record your question, boom, and it sends it to me all on one page. So dangheesling.com/ask if you want your live question or comment or feedback read on the show. I'm going to start that for episode 3 next week. But I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed episode 2 as much as you did episode 1. If you enjoyed it and you really, really enjoyed it, and you're like, Dan, why don't you have a Patreon? I'm not going to have a Patreon, but if you want to have an equivalent of dabbing me up in Patreon, you can share it with someone that you think would also enjoy it, or leave a review on iTunes. So the podcast now on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, and hopefully Google Play. The next episode will be coming out next Monday morning, so new episodes every Monday. And in between there, you're going to see some rants hit. So the rants and reviews are not going to be like the show, but they're still going to show up on the feed. So if you want to listen to those as well, do your thing. But thank you guys so much. This has been a fun episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it, whether it was entertainment, distraction, you learned something, you took a seat behind the curtain with me. But I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will see you guys next Monday. Later. Quick edit check. I did end up editing this episode. It didn't take nearly as long or as many ums. The official removal count was 6 on this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week later. 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 I'll see you